first, let me just thank all of you for having me here this afternoon. It's just, it's a pleasure. I was commenting to Frank before. I've been in this city for 21 years. What took you so long to invite me? You know, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm joking, but a couple of things. You know, I really, it's a strange feeling, almost like being at home, because this meeting very much reminds me of a time I went through when I was a younger man and I first moved to California from the East Coast. It was 1970. And I wanted to get involved in some things in my community, and we bought a home in Escondido and settled there for a little while. And so I got involved in what at the time they called the Junior Chamber of Commerce, JCs now. And it was a very active group at that time of young business people. We had about 100 members. And I'll never forget one day, because it really shaped my life, that I was in a meeting very similar to this, and a candidate for city council in Escondido came to speak to us. He was not an incumbent, he was kind of a newcomer, a local businessman, he was in the insurance business. And he gave us his little speech, and he asked for support, and he asked if there was anyone interested in politics that maybe hadn't done anything before and wanted to get on board his campaign and help a little bit. And for some reason, it touched me. I've always been interested, back to my Barry Goldwater days in 1964 when I was in 3rd grade. And so, and thank you for that. And so I went up to him after the meeting, and I told him, you know, I'd love to help you out. Whatever you need, I'll stuff some envelopes, or I'll knock on doors, or you know, whatever it takes. It was probably 1972, maybe, so I was in my early or mid-20s at the time. And so I did that, and I got kind of hooked on it. It was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it, and I felt like I was being relevant. Unfortunately, out of 3 seats that were open and about 10 candidates, he finished 4th, and so he didn't win a seat. Ultimately, I left that area and moved to other areas, having settled here in 1989. But 2 years later, that same candidate ran again, and he won. I wasn't there to help him, maybe that's why he won. But he served on the Escondido City Council for about 20 years, and really provided the impetus for me to get involved as I came up here and got settled with my family. And so in 1997, it was actually election night, and we'd just gotten the results, and I won a seat, and I was just, you know, exuberant. It was phenomenal. And so I felt compelled to send, his name was Jerry Harmon, and I felt compelled to send him a fax in those days. We didn't really do emails very much still then. And I said, I just want to let you know, I haven't spoken to you for years, but after you came and inspired me to get involved in local government and just be involved in my city, 20 or 25 years later, I'm the newest city councilman in the city of Temecula. So I was very proud of that. And so this just reminds me a little bit of that, and it gives me a warm feeling. So thank you again for that. I don't know, I have to confess, too much about Toastmasters. What comes to my mind when I hear about the organization, I know it's been around a long time and is international in scope, is that members come to the group who maybe are uncomfortable speaking, or maybe just want to hone, in most cases I think, hone your skills and how you present yourself to the public, whether it be to further your career or whatever it is you're doing, give you a comfort level. And so I want to tell you just a little bit of a story about how I got involved and started, I don't call it a career, but my first public speaking experiences, because it was a little bit different. About the same time Barry Goldwater was coming to prominence. I was 18 years old, and a mother of a friend of mine was very involved in a group that was raising money for charity, and I think it was MS. I mean, it was a disease-driven effort. And so they ran a bingo game every, whatever afternoon it was late afternoon, once a week in New York. And it was a very interesting circumstance, because there was a gentleman who owned this big hall, and he would rent it out 2 or 3 times a day to all these organizations. And, you know, 12 hours a day, they had bingo games going in and out. So they'd raise a lot of money. And so I would go help, and I was one of those guys who, you know, if you're playing and you yell out bingo, I'd run up to you and verify your card and say, okay, this is a verified winner. Well, one day I went, and the caller who takes the ball, there's one person takes the ball out of the machine, hands it to another person who says, you know, B17. Well, the caller was sick. And so they came to me and said, we know you're young, but you can speak kind of okay, and we're really in a bind. Would you go up there and be the caller? And I was petrified. I mean, I was scared to death. All they did to this caller, if he didn't call the number they wanted, they'd shout things out. This was New York, you know, and it wasn't very pretty. But, you know, you're a good sport. You're involved in the organization. So I said, oh, sure, I'd love to do it. Just I hope your expectations aren't too high. And so I did, and I struggled through it. And the next week, they decided that I did a better job than the guy who was sick, so they asked me to permanently take the position. And I did for 4 or 5 years, and it was a lot of fun. You know, it's just a volunteer position. But it did put me in a position where I was in front of a lot of people, sometimes not always pleasant. And you cut your teeth on those kind of things. And so it really made me more comfortable being in front of groups. And then it was years later when I got involved in the city, starting in 1992. And I remember I kind of lost that comfort feeling because I hadn't done it for a lot of years. And so I would get up to speak in front of a group, whether it be the dedication of a new park or whatever it is we were doing. And at first, I would just write out this speech. And you know, I would agonize over it, and I would write pages, and then I'd get up with the podium, and I would read this speech. Didn't take me very long before I realized this isn't cutting it. People don't want to listen to me. Why are they leaving in the middle of my speech? You know, I didn't quite understand it. So, and it felt very uncomfortable. And then after a while, I said, you know, I'm just going to take some 3x5 cards, and I'm just going to write some notes on it, and I'll refer to them periodically during the speech, and that'll be okay. And that was a little better, but, you know, there were like these long, pregnant pauses in between. Let me see, what am I going to say? And I didn't feel comfortable doing that either. So finally, I just came to the decision that, you know what? Just get comfortable in your own skin. Do the research on whatever it is you're ready to speak on. You know, whatever the topic is, it doesn't matter. Be familiar with what you want to say. And then just get up and talk. Just be yourself. And I found once I started to do that, it was liberating. And it became very, very easy and comfortable for me to do that. And, you know, when you speak a lot in front of groups, sometimes you walk away scratching your head and saying, boy, I didn't do a very good job today. You know, and sometimes you walk away saying, boy, I was spot on and I hit it. You know, it's just the way it is, and you take the good with the bad. But it's always enjoyable, and it's fun. So, but let me digressed a lot how I got here. Just look at the topic of the day a little bit, and that's taking a stand. And obviously something that we do on the city council every day, whether we like it or not. We're forced to. The first city manager I ever worked with, a gentleman named Ron Bradley, who did a great job setting up the city in our early days, said to me the first time I was elected, he said, your job is to split the baby. And it didn't take me too long to realize what he meant. It was the old biblical reference of King Solomon, who, when you can't make a decision, you split it and you try to make everybody happy. And that's really what an elected official is charged with doing. I found out later on in my public career that it's not so much making everybody happy, it's giving everyone the same level of discomfort. That really tells you you did a good job. If you and I are arguing here, and at the end of the day, you're as unhappy as he is, I've done my job. So it's a little bit of a backwards way to look at things, but it's true. But just to kind of bring you up to date on a few things that are happening in the city, things that you probably should take a stand on. As you look, you read the papers, you watch council meetings. It still slays me that people sit in front of the TV and watch those council meetings. It's like, don't you have anything else to do with your life? I have to be there, but a couple of issues that we're facing. Probably what is going to turn out to be the biggest, maybe not necessarily the most critical we've ever faced, but the biggest issue is an application coming forward to build a mosque in the city. You may have been reading some about that. Certainly, the predominant news on the subject is what's going on near Ground Zero in New York, where it looks like there will be a mosque approved there. We have one slated to go in on Nicholas Road. The application has come in. It'll be coming to the city, probably the Planning Commission maybe in November, and if it comes to the City Council, it'll be in February or March, more than likely. Very controversial. From the city's perspective, we're the land use regulators. It's not our job to determine whether this religion is better than this religion or that religion. We can do things like tell them how big they have to make it, how many parking spots they need, how to handle the traffic that'll be created by it, even to what color they need to make the building. But other than that, the Constitution really covers most of those other issues. But that's not necessarily what a lot of people want to hear, because it frightens some people, and given these are the times we live in. So that's going to be very controversial. Another issue we're facing right now is the immigration issue, and whether or not the city should be involved to a greater extent than we are now, because the federal government may not be doing their job. I had a meeting yesterday with Congressman Darrell Issa on the subject, and you know, it's touchy. They know it's the federal job to do it. They know they're not doing it. So what are we left with? So there are an awful lot of things out there, and I can tell you that from the perspective of the City Council, having concerned citizens who take a stand and tell us what your stand is, make our job a whole lot easier. Sometimes it's contentious, but we live with that. That's okay. At the end of the day, that's what makes for a better process and brings us all together with a solution that we all can live with. So don't ever hesitate to take that stand, but more importantly, express it. You know, if all you do is decide in your own mind what you want to do, or the position you want to take in your own mind, that's fine if that's what you want. At the end of the day, that's where you want to be. But if you want to try and effectuate change or push your position forward, you need to articulate that somewhere, whatever the outlet is that you feel most comfortable with. So that would be my message for today, is not just get involved, but talk to people, tell people what you think. Try to influence their decision and listen to them. Give them the opportunity to have an open listener on the other side. And with that, again, thank you so much for being here.